Okay. Can you see me on the stream? And can you hear me? It's fine. I always forget that. Yeah. Yeah. How, is this /mod? Really? Okay. Can you say something in chat? Hello. Okay, I think I did it. You a mod now? Yes, you are. You're a mod. Okay. All right. Is it working? Audio's good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Cool. Good start.
Okay. Cool. Sure.
All right. Hey, everybody. I think we're going to get started. My name's BC. Thanks for coming to the Rochester Game Dev Meetup. Yeah, why not, right? So this is the, for those of you who are new, maybe your first time, this is a meetup we do every month, the first Wednesday of every month, right here at Magic. Usually around 7 to 10. And what we do is we have a workshop. We have people share some stuff if they want. Anyone's welcome to share. And then usually we just kind of hang out and, I don't know, play test stuff, check each other's projects out, that type of thing, hang out, chat. We also have a second meetup, and that is the third Saturday of every month. And typically we do that at this place downtown called Swoburger / Playhouse. It's a bar that has arcades in it. And also serve burgers, which is really awesome. So that meetup is more of a social gathering. We just kind of hang out and chat. You can kind of come anytime, show up whenever you want, leave whenever you want. But yeah, those are our two meetups. So we do them, like I said, every month, and we've been doing it for about a year now. We've been here in Magic for maybe like 2 or 3, I think. But yeah, it looks like we're going to be here for the rest of the year, the academic year at least. So yeah, I hope to see more people here. First thing, I'm going to run through a few announcements. If I can think of any, actually. Not too many. We have the, what's it called? The Maker Faire coming up in November. I believe it's November 14th.
Did you hear back?
What's that?
Did you hear back?
I haven't heard back.
Okay.
So what you can do, the Maker Faire is basically this cool convention that hosts anybody who's making anything, whatever it is. You get a lot of robots, you get a lot of hands-on stuff, you get things like sand art that people make all day and then they destroy it, it's really cool. But last year they invited us and we showcased, I think, 3 or 4 games. We just had monitors set up on the table, people came by all day and played it, it was awesome. So if anybody has anything for November and they want us to showcase it, let us know, we'll throw it up there. You know, you can come check it out. It's really awesome. Or if you want, you can put in to go have a table yourself. If you're not selling anything, the tables are usually free. The way we kind of got around that is we just like handed out stuff like, you can go buy stuff here, you know, hand out like a business card or something. They actually tell us we do that, so it's really fun. But yeah, again, I think that's November 14th. I could be wrong in the date. As far as any other announcements, I myself don't have any. Does anybody here have anything you want to point out or bring up? I don't know where. I'm not aware.
There's definitely Game Maker and Humble Bundle. Just a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Does it include the export modules?
Yeah, it's like $15.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Source code.
Cool. Yeah, I think somebody posted that in Slack. too easy to get into. We have a Slack. It sucks right now because the only way you can sign up is by email. You have to give me your email and I send you an invite. So I'll put out a sheet later for that if you want to join in on that. We got, I think, a couple channels in there. It's somewhat active. It's fun. Other than that, I don't know. Anybody else? Nothing? Yeah.
We have people from the RIT Cool. Here today as well.
Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm not used to this mic. It's weird. I picture on a number of people. But going on to today's workshop, Wes here will be walking us through Unity. Intro to Unity, making a basic platformer, platforming stuff.
Yeah.
So that'll be, I don't know how long it'll take.
Probably 20 or 30.
Cool, perfect.
Yeah.
And we're trying to record it, something new. We'll see how this goes. We want to start recording some of our workshops and putting them up on the either Facebook or through the site. Hopefully this one will be archived on Twitch.
Cool.
But then what we typically do is have people share stuff. I know there's a few people here who might do that. So yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Wes and we can get started. Anybody have any questions before we start? Cool.
Cool. All right, can you guys hear me okay with this little stand thing? Is it like going through the speakers? Okay, cool. I see a ton of new faces, and I just wanted to ask, how did you guys hear about the Game Dev Meetup? Yeah, anybody?
RITG.
Okay, all right, nice, cool. Yeah, I mean, welcome. We do this, like BC said, twice a month, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys maybe know Unity or are here because you're like freshmen or sophomores, and you're like interested in using Unity in your projects because it's like a super effective game engine. I can't really do a Unity 101 because it's kind of a broad topic, but I was asking around, Pete specifically, who's not even here, was like, hey, you should give me a reason to use Unity. And I guess I would just start it off by saying that like the reason to use Unity is because it can do anything, literally anything. And a lot of people go into Unity and they're like, well, Unreal's better, or like you should write your own engine if you want to make a giant MMO. But like, I promise you that Unity can do it better, if not, just as good. Another reason you might want to use Unity is because it does a ton of work for you. So it does all the rendering, all the physics, and all that stuff. And I'll get into that. But also there's like a huge community around Unity, and anything that is not already in the engine, you can just download from the Unity Asset Store or from GitHub or wherever. But basically what this workshop is going to be is just me making a platformer with some of BC's assets in like 20 minutes, just to show you how quick it is, because a lot of the guys that come to the Game Dev Meetup are artists or like generalists that aren't necessarily programmers and they don't know C# or they use like GameMaker or something that's trigger based and design heavy. And Unity is kind of like the good intersection of the two. So I'm just going to show you guys how to whip up something really quick. So I'm just going to pop up into Unity here, and I'm going to start a new project. This is like just straight out of the box Unity. I'm not using like any extensions or anything. Just like platformer. And I'm going to drop it on my desktop. And I'm going to work in 2D. Unity can work in either 2D or 3D. It started in 3D, like the corporate name is Unity 3D, but it can do both, which is nifty. Oh, I'm sorry. And what you're going to get out of the box is just like this nifty little editor thing that kind of looks like a game modding tool, which is kind of exactly what you want because it's like a really hands-on editor, really like draggy and fun to use, honestly. But like I kind of wanted to go over just like the sections of Unity, and on the left you've got the hierarchy, which is just in the scene. So right now I just have a camera and it just renders things. But if I were to drop like all my terrain and my characters, they would all go in the hierarchy, and I can see where they are and drag them around. I can take the camera and just drag it around if I want to, which is nice because like this alone is like 10 times what something like XNA or whatever would already give you, or GameMaker even. Down here you've got your project, which is just an assets folder. It can take any file, which is kind of cool. So like a lot of the handled files get like import settings, so like sprites and stuff, but you can put whatever you want in there. And then on the right you got the inspector, which is just like whatever you're clicking on. So in this case it's a camera, and I can mess around with things. So like in your core projects you have to code this stuff. So you have to say like camera.background is blue, right? But in Unity the whole gimmick is that everything's serialized, so I can just tap in the editor and like drag stuff around, make the background like bright pink or something. So now when I hop in the game it's pink. But BC made me a cool little set of sprites that I'm just going to drag in here. And it's a sprite sheet, which is like typically you have to go in and cut up everything, but Unity does even that for you. I'm just going to fix up some stuff here. I'm not really going to go into what these settings are, but basically what I'm doing is I'm cutting up a sprite sheet of pixel art. So I'm configuring Unity to not work with a giant image, but work with a pixelized image. And this is the sprite sheet. So right now this is what this image looks like. And if I just take it and like drag it into the editor, it's just going to look like, oops. Oh, I can't because it's multiple. But anyways, I'm going to tell Unity just, kind of hard to see, isn't it? I'm going to tell Unity to cut this sprite up into blocks of 32 by 32, so I just have all these images as separate images. Even though this single image gets imported as a single PNG. And now if I want to get a sprite in the screen, I can just drag it in. So now I have like a sprite in my game, and that background's not going to work because her hair's pink. Just gonna make it. Yeah, that's fine. But like a lot of the, like I said, a lot of the guys here are like artists and animators. So like the quickest thing that you can do in Unity is make an animation, and all you have to do is just take the frames of it and like highlight them all, and then just drag them into the game together. And then you name the animation. So I'm gonna call it like player idle. And now if I play it, it has that animator on it, and she's animating her cycle. I'm just going to zoom in for you guys so you can see that. So like in 2 seconds, I just made the character's idle animation, given the assets. And that's kind of like the perk of Unity. And you can see even there, like I was playing around with the camera settings, and in Unity, when you're looking at the inspector, and I've got like this hierarchy of a camera and a character here, if I make any changes to any of the components, any of the code that I'm writing, if I make a change while it's playing, it doesn't get saved. So what I can do is if I'm like, well, I don't really like this camera size, let me play around. So like 10 is too big, 1's too small, 2's fine. And I can just back out, and it's back to 5, and then I can set it to 2. And I'm happy with that. Also, I should do this right now, but all the Unity scene is what we call like this space in the hierarchy. So right now it's just called untitled. But like this is like your level. So like if you had a dungeon, you would name it like Dungeon 1, and that would be the space that the game is playing in. And you can load those and unload them. So if you have like a forest level and like a mountain level, you would load the forest scene and then load the mountain scene. Your forest assets will get unloaded so that you're not using ridiculous amounts of RAM. Had that problem with the game. I'm basically, I think the first thing that I'm going to do is just start making platforms. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop in here and grab one of the platforms that BC made and drag it into the scene. And if I hold down Command on Mac, probably like Alt on Windows, I can drag between like blocks so that you don't have to like set up a grid. You can just position it on the grid. So here I'm just going to place it like below her so she's going to fall onto it. And basically, to get physics going, it's all built into Unity. I just need to add some components. And what components are like I've got these objects in the scene, and they're built up of other parts. Like the way that you typically learn C# is that it's hierarchical and object-oriented. So like a vehicle is a class, and a car extends a vehicle. Because a car is a vehicle, and so is a bike, and so is a horse. But in Unity, we build things up of parts. So instead of taking a vehicle and extending it to make a car, you're going to make a car out of wheel components and like a steering wheel component. So in this case, all I'm going to add to this box is just a collider right now. So a box collider 2D. And it's going to size it for me and everything. You can see this kind of like green ring around it. That's like where the collisions are going to happen. And then on the player needs a box collider also. And it's kind of big to start, so I'm actually going to resize it a little bit. Oops, that's not right. What's up?
Is it easy to update spreadsheets after you drag it?
Yeah, it is. I'll show you how to do that real quick. I don't really have an example of a spreadsheet that I would update, but what I do is you don't want to like re-import the spreadsheet into Unity. So if I dragged another one of these in here, like let's say I called this spreadsheet 1 or something, or I guess even if it's the same name, right? If I import this again, it's going to rename it to sprite sheet 1 for me and give me another sprite sheet. And that's not what I want. So what I can do is I can like kind of underhand it through the OS, and I can pop into the assets folder in like Explorer, and I can take the sprite sheet and drop it in there, and it'll tell me I want to replace it, say replace, and then instead of re-importing the asset, it just takes and overrides the PNG, and then all of the cuts stay where they are. So if I want to add an asset, or if I want to change a cut, or if I want to change a sprite inside of a cut, they'll stay exactly where they are. Does that answer the question? I'm not looking at chat. Okay, cool. Also, if you guys have any questions, just spit them out. And all of time. Okay, what's up?
When you were holding, I don't know, was it control or all something?
Yeah, command on Mac.
Snap. Can you set that value with the snap, or is it based on the size?
I think you can set that value. I did it a little bit earlier where, so on the spreadsheet, this is kind of hard to see, isn't it? But up here I've got pixels per unit. It's 32. So 1 foot or like whatever is 32 pixels for that image. So I set it for all the images, and you can override the defaults and everything. But I think that you can also change the unit length from like a foot to a meter to whatever you want it to be. And what I would do, honestly, is I would write a script that like creates a grid for you, so that if you like did this accidentally, like you're moving around, you accidentally did that. Now if I hold Alt, it's going to move it over there. So you want to still write a script that like keeps them all in check. But for now, I mean, if you're designing carefully, you can just do it. But yeah, there will be. I'll leave time for questions at the end. But also, if you have one, just like yell at me or whatever. So going back to this, I have my box collider now, and I'm gonna add also a rigid body 2D. That's kind of it just means do physics to this thing. So I get gravity, right? I get mass. So like if I want to push this object around, it has mass now. I get collision detection. So I'm also gonna like put a constraint on it that says don't rotate, so that like I can't have my character falling around. I'm gonna use like a continuous collision detection and interpolated movement. You don't really need them, but they help with like clean physics motion and everything. So now I should just see her drop. Yep, onto the block. And she's gonna stay there. So like now, because I have all these little like components and everything, I can add other physics to the game. So I could have like a boulder come and hit her and knock her around, or like whatever I want to do. When she dies, she flies in the air or something. But right now we don't have any motion, so I think what I'm gonna do is jump into scripting. I might add one more thing later. I'm gonna take the camera. I'm gonna grab the camera. I'm gonna put it under the player. So now I have like a hierarchy. So it's kind of hard to see, but I have a player game object, and the camera is a child of that object. And what that means is that the camera's gonna follow it. It's just that's all it means. It now uses like a local position. And what I'm gonna do to make the player move around is I'm gonna grab her. I'm gonna say add component. And I'm going to create my own component, which is it's just a C# or a JavaScript script, and I'm just going to call it like player. So Unity creates a class for me, right? I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with programming, but I'm not going to teach it here. But it creates a C# class, and it creates it in a script that gets compiled when I build the game. So I have this thing called a player. Try and zoom in. Wow, I can't. Uh-oh. Maybe Adam can. Sorry, guys. No, even Adam can't zoom in. Can you guys see this okay? Ish. Better? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys kind of the heads up that if you're using Mono Developer Xamarin Studio, it's gonna autocomplete for you, but Adam's not gonna do that. So I'm gonna be typing things that it's gonna look like they're just coming out of my imagination, but in reality they're like Unity keywords and everything. But this is a mono behavior, so what it just means is that it's a script that attaches to a thing in Unity. Just like a rigid body and just like a box collider, but you can't look at those because they're Unities. So this, like you can kind of see here, this little thing is like my player, and it hangs onto that object and just runs code on that object. And it can talk to other components and talk to other objects. But that's just what this mono behavior thing does. I'm going to delete those two methods because they suck. But the way that I'm going to have this player move around is I'm going to give her a movement speed. So I'm going to say public float movement speed. And so what that syntax means is public just means expose it to anything. So anything outside of the script can edit it. And that includes Unity. So if I pop over here in my player script, which you guys can't really see, wow. This little field pops up that says movement speed, and it's 0 right now, and I can just edit that. So I never assign the variable in programming at all in any C#. I can just assign it right here, and I think I gave it 8. Should be fine. And so now whenever I assign that in the Unity editor, it's going to, like on load, it's going to say that this character's movement speed is 8. And a float is just a value that's not an integer. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this fancy method called update. And like in general C#, this just looks like a private method, so only this object can call it. But in Unity, there are special method names. We call them magic methods, and update is one of them. And there's documentation on all of them. But update is just a special method that runs every tick, so between every frame. And I'm going to grab whatever like axis the player's moving on horizontally. So if I'm using an Xbox controller, it's like left and right on the joystick. And Unity does all that for me. So I'm just going to say float H, grab a float, input get axis horizontal, maybe. So what this is going to do is it's going to grab the axis that it calls horizontal, which you can rename, and you can define all these things yourself. On the keyboard, it's A and D, and on the Xbox controller, it's like the joysticks. And it's going to put it in a float, and it puts it in a float because if you're using a joystick, it's how far left or right you're moving. So if you want to have your character walk versus run, this will kind of handle that. Let me go quick, but anyways, it's going to say, let's see. So my speed is going to be h times movement speed. So how fast I'm moving is like how far I'm moving the joystick times my movement speed. And then I'm going to get another component. It's going to be my rigid body 2D. Hopefully I typed that all right. But anyway, so, sorry? You guys are the best. And I think it's that velocity. Let me just type this up, and then you guys can check me, and then I'm gonna need this, aren't I? All right, am I good, guys? What did I mess up? Nothing? Okay. Thought I saw somebody's hand go up. Let's check over here. Seems to be okay with it. So let's find out. Yep, there we go. All right, so I'm flying off the edge now. So let me just explain this code real quick. So what I did was I grabbed another component that's attached to this object. So when I say get component, I'm talking to the same object that I'm on in Unity. So this is the player object. And I'm grabbing another component. So we're talking on this object that I have selected, the player. I'm talking from the player component to the rigid body component, which remember is like the physics component. And I'm assigning the velocity, which has to be vector 2 because it's in 2 directions. So the x component is my speed, and then the y component is whatever it used to be. That's why I use the RB is the rigid body dot velocity dot y. So basically, I'm telling it maintain your y velocity and change your x velocity. So what I need is I'm going to bring the camera out a little bit. And then I'm just going to duplicate these guys, and I'm just going to create a platform for me to walk on. So I can walk around these things. Any questions so far? Cool. You guys following? Oh, what's up?
How would you change
How would I change the movement speed? I would do it in Unity. So I would click on the player. I would go to the player script, and I don't know if you can see this because you're in the back, but at the bottom here, under player, I have my movement speed exposed because I made that variable public. Unity is aware of it. There are other ways to do this, but I made it public, and that means other scripts can change it too. But Unity is aware of it, and in it, I can even like, if I'm in the game, I can just take the movement speed and like drag it, and like now I'll make it like 70, and I'm just gonna fly around, right? And then when I pop back, it's back to 8. So that's how I would change the movement speed. So what are we doing next? We can make the character jump. Let's do that. So I'm just going to move the rigid body up here because I want it at the top. And then I want to go if input.get button down, I think. Jump. So jump's another like keyword that Unity uses, which you can change. But it's basically saying if I press the jump button, it's fairly clear code, right? And then I'm just going to apply a force. So I'm going to say rb.add force vector2.up times, let's make a thing. Let's say like 400 for now. And then let's make like a jump force field. So I did the exact same thing as with movement speed. So I can pop over to Unity. It's going to say it's 0. And I can assign it here. Maybe? We're at. Thanks. There we go. All right, so I'm going to say 140 because that's what I have in my notes. But the whole point of this is that if I'm a coder and I'm working with a designer on the project, the designer can open Unity and never touch the code and change all these values. So that way they don't have to code, I guess. That's really it. And you can create all your own editor tools for them to do that. But now I can jump. Yeah. So if I like go in here and I add like well, it's kind of close, the platform. I can maybe jump over that. I don't know. Let's find out. Yay. Cool. So like we could start making a level, but I know that a lot of you guys are animators and probably want to get an animation. So if I look at my player, when I made my player out of those sprites, what's up?
Why did you put jump and horizontal?
So Unity has a whole configuration that it does automatically for you. I'll show you where it is. So if you go into File, Editor, Project Settings and Input, it's got, wow, you really probably can't see that. It's got all these axes that it defines at the start, and one of the top one's horizontal, and so it grabs the left and right joystick buttons, and one of them is jump, and you can make your own. So if you want to make a button that's like go through the portal or like grab the item, you can call it that, and it becomes a string, which is why I put it in quotes. So this method takes a string, and the axis is for things that are on axes, and the buttons are for actual like Boolean buttons. So like the get axis will return a float, so a range of values, and the button down will return a Boolean. Is that button pressed or not? And there are two others. There's get button, which is it always fires when the button's down, and there's get button up, which is when you release it. So if you want to have like a charge where like you hold A and then release it, you can do stuff like that. Yeah, sure. Any other questions? Cool. All right, so the animator. So when I made this game object out of a bunch of sprites, it made an animation for me, and it added to my character this animator component. And I already have the window open, but if I pop in here, can I zoom in here? Probably not. Anyways, this is like Unity's animator, and it's like a super complex feature that they're like really proud of. They love this feature. And basically, you've got an entry state. So this is like whenever the thing is created, and it goes into player idle. And I can make other states. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make two states. One of them is going to be like jump. So I'm going to call it jump. I'm going to rename this one to idle real quick, actually. I'm going to call this one jump. And I'm going to make another one called run. And the reason that they have this whole interface for it, oops, that sucks. Please, okay. The reason that they have this whole interface for it and they have this arrow here is because if I were using like a rig to animate my character, like if I created a 3D model and it had bones, and it was like dynamically animated, I could make transitions and I could have layers. So if I have a character that's like a human, they could have a legs layer and like an arms layer, so they could be shooting and running or just idling and shooting. And I can also make transitions so that if my character's running and he stops, the transition animation could be like him screeching to a halt or whatever. So Unity has all that built in, which is really, really nice. They also have blend states built in. I don't know if any of you guys are modelers or animators, but it's for like face motions. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of, I'm going to grab the rest of these frames. So I'm going to grab the run animation. I'm just going to drag it in here. And I'm going to name the animation like play run. And then I'm just going to get rid of the object it made because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the jump. Play your jump. Then I'm just going to get rid of it. And it also made 2 extra animator components that I don't really need anymore. So I'm just going to delete those. And then back in my animator, I'm going to assign the animation. So up here it says a new motion because it doesn't have one. And I'm going to give this one jump. And I'm going to give run, play to run. So let's just grab my notes. So back in this thing, whatever this is called, player. Oh god. Let's see. Oh, cool. All right. So actually, one thing that we need is we need to know if the player's grounded, which is kind of it's like a really janky thing in Unity, unfortunately. But I'm just going to make a method that's just a Boolean is grounded, right? And so what I'm doing here, a method in C# is just like a group of code that you can call at any time. And it's a private Boolean, which means it's going to return either true or false. So it's going to resolve to either true or false. And I'm going to type a bunch of stuff right now. It's going to look like mumbo jumbo, but I'll explain it. Let's see. And like if I write anything wrong and you guys see it, correct me. Also, how am I in time? Okay, cool. So I'm going to grab the collider attached to this. I'm going to say ground distance. So what I'm doing here is I'm grabbing the box collider attached to the player, and I'm going down to the bottom of the box, and I'm creating a little box alongside the bottom. And that box is gonna, if it's touching the ground, the player's grounded. That's really it. So I got the size of the box. I took half the size and made it really small, really thin, times 0.1. What's up?
Why didn't you do get component of box collider to
Yeah, you could do that. You could. Yeah, I probably have it. You could just do this. Probably. It used to be that in Unity, this is kind of tangent, but it used to be that the collider was like a native thing, so I could just say collider, and it would return it as a collider, and then you'd have to cast it as a box object. So that's probably why I did it, just out of like habit. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a physics cast. Say collider 2D hit equals physics 2D overlap box. Whoops. Dude. Oh. Sorry, I'm kind of just looking at my stuff here. It's also important. All right. Hopefully that worked. Let's find out. No. Cool. All right. So what I did here is I'm trying to figure out if the player is touching the ground. So I made a box at the bottom of the player's feet that extends a little bit beyond it. And then I physics2d.overlap box basically checks if there's something hitting it. And the layer mask.name to layer thing is just saying, is it on the terrain layer? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to Unity. I'm going to grab all my terrain. I'm going to go up to the layer here, which is tiny and you can't see it. I'm sorry. I'm going to hit add layer, add a terrain layer, and then Unity's stupid and doesn't assign it. So I'm going to just go back and do it again. And so now my player's in the default layer and all those objects are on the terrain layer, which doesn't do anything. It just gives them a little tag so that I can cast physics stuff. And so now I'm only going to want to jump if I'm grounded, right? So if is grounded, give me the option to jump. That was terrible. So now maybe, oh wow, not working. What did I do wrong? Shitty. Well, we can learn how to debug Unity if you guys want. So Unity's got this handy little debug class. It's just called debug. And you can say debug.log warning, or log even, and it'll just type out whatever string you put in there. So in this case, it's going to tell me what is grounded does. And it's going to print it out down here in the console. And obviously, it's just going to spit out false. Yeah. I wonder why.
Is it true when you're ready to start?
When what?
Is it true when you start? It's when you're start.
It was not. It shouldn't be true when I start.
It should be.
Yeah, it should not. It should be true when I hit the ground. It might be this thing, actually. Let's find out. Probably not, but. Ugh. No. Sorry, you guys probably think I'm crazy. Let's give this a little more. Wow. That's crazy. Anybody catch anything?
It is because the players always going down. Those boxes are always overlapping. And it's technically on the ground. They're always overlapping. So, yeah,
Let's try
how
something.
large is the space that defines the ground?
try that. Oh, whoa, something was missing there. Weird. No, I don't think so. See if I missed anything. Yeah, I don't know. All right, well, we'll figure it out later. Let's work on the animator for now, I guess. Because I wanted to show you guys that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab the animator, and in same way I got the rigid body. So now I have access to the animator, and I can just say like animator.play. So what I'll do is I'll say if the velocity, the x velocity is like, well, we'll use the absolute value, which I think is that, maybe, is greater than like that much, right? Like if it's moving at a decent speed, we'll go anim.play, and we'll say, what was the state? I think it was just run. And otherwise, we'll play the idle state. So maybe that'll work. We'll see. What's up? Okay. So now if I pop in this camera, please. You can see the player running. And she's backwards right now, so we can flip her too. And we can say, let's get the sprite renderer. I think there's just a dot flip x. I'm not sure. Let me check real quick. Yeah, dot flip x equals velocity dot x is less than 0. Maybe. Yep. Cool. And she's probably going to return to right facing for now. But yeah, I don't know about that other issue. But for now, basically, that was like all the things that I had planned to show you guys. And there are some other sprites that BC provided. There was like a bouncy thing and a door. And like we could just design a level real quick, right? Like I can grab these platforms and just move around and make a level out of this. And since I can jump all the time, it doesn't really matter. But it's kind of about you guys, so I wanted to know if there's anything that you guys want to see in Unity, or if you had any questions in general about Unity that I can answer for you guys. What's up?
A lot of platformers have the ability to control how high you jump. Can you show how to do that here?
How high you can jump?
Yeah.
Um,
You can alter the way you can how high you can jump by depending on how long you jump.
yeah, I mean, I could show you how to. You're talking about like in Smash Bros, where you can like jump for just a second and it like jumps a little bit.
It's a lot closer to Mario or Metroid, where it's like how long you hold the jump button in terms like more so the larger degree of control of your height than in Smash Brothers, where you only have like two heights.
Yeah, sure. I can whip up like a really janky example of that, but yeah, I'll do it for you. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'll keep the jump force. I'm going to lower it a lot, so that this makes sense. I'll make it like 50, right? And then we'll say like Let's give it like a max multiplier so I can't hold it down forever, right? We'll just leave it at that, and we'll say like 5, which is already probably too much. But and then I'm basically gonna keep track of how long you're holding the button down, right? So I'm just gonna call it a button hold. And then I'm going to say, instead of just having it jump immediately when you press down, I'm going to say get button. So the jump button is down. And then I'm going to say button hold. I'm going to add the time between the frames to that. So it's tracking how much time has passed. And then I'm just going to cap it. So if button hold is greater than max multiplier, button hold equals max multiplier. So it's never going to go higher than that. You could use math.client if you feel like it. Otherwise, if we release the jump button, I'm going to say rb.add force vector 2.up times jump force times button hold. Make sense? I don't know if this is going to work. I just made that up. We'll find out. Maybe. There we go. So that, like I said, it's kind of like, it's not exactly what you're looking for, but that's kind of the basics of it, right?
Kind of like, if you've ever played Jump, it's kind of like it's jump system, where it's like you hold down the button and then you release it and jump.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're looking for, I think, in your original question is this on a smaller scale. So, like, rather than talking about seconds, we're talking about milliseconds. And I mean, I could put that in, but it would just take a little bit of thought, and you know.
The premise is that you kind of, the jumping as you're holding the button, not that you hold the button and then jump. It's not a charging motion, and it's kind of like a time-based motion.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you could have it like in this kind of if statement where you're holding the button down, you could have it jumping there also and applying a force while it's doing that, if you wanted to do exactly that. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool.
I think maybe what you're looking for is like the original jump, but if you lose one, you immediately zero your velocity.
Okay, we could do that. Sure. So we'll get rid of the whole button hold thing. We don't need that anymore. We'll put jump force at 40 again. And then when you release the jump button, we'll say rb.velocity equals new vector 2, rb.velocity.x, and 0. Maybe that'll work. So something like that. Cool. Does that, I mean, it's not exactly what you're looking for maybe, but answers your question better. Okay, cool. Any other questions or requests, I guess? What's up?
So I'm more of a programmer, but like, so you comparing it to Unreal earlier, so like it has a blueprint system, and Unity doesn't really have that. So
It has a what system?
the blueprints.
Oh, Unreal Engine's blueprints? Yeah,
so
okay.
like if some non-programmer would like ask you like, oh, Unreal has blueprints, Unity doesn't have that much to use. So,
I mean, so first of all, if you wanted to go to the Unity Asset Store, I think that there are blueprint like mods for Unity. I'm sure that you can find one if you really wanted to do that. My answer to that would be that a designer is not supposed to be looking at your code. Whether it's blueprints or code, they shouldn't be looking at it. So you can create in Unity an editor for them to look at. I'm just going to pop out of this real quick to show you what our designers look at in Adventure Guild. So But basically, what I'm trying to say is like, hopefully, this opens in time. You should design your editor because you can extend the Unity editor also and create your own tools and like graphing tools and whatever you want to make. You should design that so your editors don't have to look at the code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I was thinking more about like hobbyist people who just want to make it not part of the team, but who want to make it game whatever you program and so on.
Sure. So if you're like a generalist and you want to do everything, but you're not experienced with code, that's what you're talking about. I think that it's kind of inevitable that you kind of have to learn code in Unity. There is JavaScript as an alternative option. I know a lot of designers know some JavaScript. But like I said, there's communities out there for Unity. Unity has its own asset store where you can download straight into it. And there is a blueprint tool like that. So if that's what you want to use, you could use that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and on the cover, talk some of the Unity about next. I know there's like engines you can buy too. There's like some and like major IPs that we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Or yeah, something like
Yeah, but for Adventure Guild, we have like our editor tools. So like, for example, for like equipment, right? This is a list of our equipment, and like this is not provided to us by Unity. We wrote all of this. So our designer Jackie would go in here, and if she wanted to edit like this Hauberg or something, she would pop in here. These are all the override skins for it. She could edit all the stats. She could edit what kind of stats that it applies. So from a designer's perspective, you can make tools for them. But if they're looking to get into the code and you don't want them to write code, you could create something like Blueprint, yeah, or download it. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay, cool. I think I saw another one behind you. Maybe not. Okay, cool. Any other questions or anything? Cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys.